What's going on, y'all, and welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be taking a look back at the Xbox One as this generation is now coming to an end, and the Xbox Series X and Series S are now up for pre-orders. Hopefully you guys were able to secure one. If not, no worries. I'm sure Microsoft will have plenty of stock this holiday season for you guys to enjoy. But I told you guys, some of you, that I was working on a PlayStation 4 retrospective, and immediately I got asked, am I going to do Xbox? So I think it's only fair for me to take some time and take a look at the Xbox One and just highlight some of the games that I enjoyed and just talk about Xbox as a whole and Microsoft's impact on this generation. So without further ado, let's jump into it. So like I stated in my PlayStation retrospective, Microsoft had a pretty rocky time with the Xbox One initially. When we take a look back at the Xbox One's launch, it looks like what Microsoft was trying to position was kind of like an all-in-one box for your entertainment, hence the name Xbox One. They really wanted this to be a home hub to replace, your streaming boxes and your DVRs and be, your web browser and be so many different things in the household. It was supposed to be a multifunctional device, but they were trying to position this on the Xbox's name, and Xbox is traditionally known for gaming. So as a gaming device, it really just hit, it just really rubbed gamers the wrong way initially when it was revealed. Luckily, later in the generation, I would say just about midway through the generation, Phil Spencer came in as head of Xbox and kind of cleaned all of that up, and now Xbox is thriving and doing a lot of amazing things. So like I said, this video is more so to highlight not just the games I played, but just to talk about Xbox's generation and where I see it going with the future with Xbox. So without further ado, let's start by highlighting some of my favorite titles that were on the Xbox. Let's get into it. All right, so the first game I want to highlight here is Dead Rising 3. So if you did not know, during the launch window, Microsoft announced that the next installment of Dead Rising was going to be exclusively for the Xbox One. And around this time period, Microsoft was still bundling the Xbox One with the Kinect. Now, if you didn't know, the Kinect was supposed to be something to overall enhance your experience with the Xbox One. Microsoft had this whole vision for it. People are going to be controlling their Xboxes with their voices. It's going to have in-game integration, and Dead Rising 3 still has some of that in the game. You can kind of tell it was designed around that. But when I got an Xbox, this is when they already kind of took the Kinect away from the Xbox One and kind of sold it as a solo unit. So when I got my Xbox One, I immediately grabbed Dead Rising 3 because I'm a Capcom fan. I've always been kind of curious about the Dead Rising series, and plus I needed something to play on this console that I just purchased. So I bought Dead Rising 3, and it is a fun time. You pretty much ride around the city and you're destroying, it's a zombie outbreak game, so you're destroying all these zombies in very cool ways. And I think that's the appeal of Dead Rising, that you find these blueprints and you can create different wacky type of weapons and you can use that to take down your foes. Now, one thing about Dead Rising 3 that I enjoy, and I really wish I can go back and play it, was the DLC. Now, I'm not gonna try to pronounce that DLC that Capcom released for the game. I'll have it up on the screen. But essentially, your character will cosplay as one of the Capcom characters, whether that's Ryu or the girl from Dino Crisis. But instead of it being a simple cosplay, they actually get the powers or the abilities of those characters, what made it so fun. And it was set up like an arcade game, so you can kind of jump in and jump out whenever you felt like it. So that, to me, was the highlight of the game, that DLC. I'll put a name of it on the screen. I'll also put it in the description. But yo, if you ever decide to pick up Dead Rising 3, as a game for your back catalog, definitely get the DLC. It is totally worth it. Let's move on. All right, the next game I want to highlight is actually a game I played on Twitch recently, and that is Sunset Overdrive. So Sunset Overdrive immediately caught my attention right from the reveal trailer. Sunset Overdrive was colorful, it had a lot of personality, and what really caught me was it was developed by Insomniac Games. Now, Insomniac Games, if you don't know, they developed, Spyro the Dragon, Ratchet and Clank. Later on, they did Spider-Man, so on and so forth. So when I saw their logo pop up at an Xbox conference, and I saw like this colorful game with tons of personality, I was immediately sold on it. So Sunset Overdrive is essentially a mixture between Ratchet and Clank with, the crazy, wacky guns that you can get, and also Infamous with the way you traverse around the city. It is one of those games I felt like was so slept on, because I really feel like with this game, it appealed to an audience that was not traditionally Xbox fans. When you think of Xbox, you think of Gears, you think of Call of Duty, you think of Halo, but when you have this very colorful platform Ratchet and Clank like game pop up on the screen, that is kind of like a weird move. You know what I mean? So I love Sunset Overdrive. It was one of the games that I played a lot. I still think it's a fun time today. And I think it's on Game Pass as well. So we're going to talk about Game Pass later. But if you have an Xbox and you are looking for like something different to play on it, definitely give Sunset Overdrive a look. It is one of those games I felt like is severely underrated and needs more love. Let's move on. All right, so the next game I want to highlight is Ori and the Blind Forest. So Ori and the Blind Forest is another one of those games that I felt like just kind of fell under the radar due to the fact that it was associated with Xbox. Again, when people think of Xbox, and you guys, you can drop a comment down below if you want to chime in on this, but when people think of Xbox, games like this don't necessarily come to mind. So Ori and the Blind Forest, it even took me a while to get to it. I recently reviewed it on my channel. Ori and the Blind Forest is a beautiful 2D Metroidvania style game. You know, I was really surprised on how high quality this game was. This game is fantastic. If you are a fan of Metroidvanias, you owe it to yourself to play this game. Right now, this game is multi-platform, so you can play it on Xbox, but I believe you can also play this on PC and the Nintendo Switch. So if you have any of those platforms and you like Metroidvanias and you like games with beautiful art styles, play Ori and the Blind Forest. And also play its sequel. I heard the sequel is pretty good as well. It is on my backlog currently, but I plan on getting to it very soon. But Ori and the Blind Forest is one of the shining stars on the Xbox One. So definitely give it a shot. All right, so the next game I want to highlight is a game you all should know very well, Cuphead. Now, when Cuphead was first revealed at the Microsoft event, my mind was blown. You know, me being such a huge fan of hand-drawn animation and old school Warner Brothers and Disney, this game was everything that I wanted. Not only did the mechanics look super fun, it kind of reminded me like a mixture of Mega Man and Contra, but the art style, that old school hand-drawn animation, something that we rarely see nowadays. It was just so refreshing. So you bet when Cuphead was revealed, that was a huge selling point for me for the Xbox, and I waited years for that game, and when it came out, it exceeded all my expectations. If you haven't played Cuphead yet, it is multi-platform. Microsoft went ahead and allowed this game to be on all the other platforms, so if you have a Nintendo Switch and even a PlayStation 4 at this point, you can play Cuphead. Also, if you have Game Pass, I believe that Cuphead is still on Game Pass. I may be wrong about that. You guys leave a comment about that if it's not. But Cuphead is definitely a shining star when it came to the Microsoft portfolio. And the fact that now it's available everywhere, everybody has the opportunity to check this game out. So Cuphead, if you're a fan of 2D platformers, boss rushes, or just animation in general, give this game a shot. This game is fantastic. I love it. All right, now we're talking about two of the heavy hitters on the Xbox platform, and that is Gears of War 4 and 5. And I guess I can also throw Gears of War Ultimate Edition as well, which is essentially a remastering of the first game, or pretty much a remake, because I believe it uses all new models and kind of have an improved cover system as well. But Gears of War is one of those games that was a huge selling point for me on the 360, and it was still a selling point for me on the Xbox One. I love Gears of War. I love the cover system, the shooting mechanics. I love the enemy variety in these games, and Gears of War 4 and 5 are some of the showpieces for the Xbox. So if you really want to show off the graphical horsepower of the Xbox, Gears of War is one of the mini games you can do that with. Not only is it a beautiful game to play, but it's also a very fun game to play. The combat is very engaging, the shooting mechanics are on point. It's just a great time. So if you never played a Gears game, all of them are on Xbox Game Pass. What are you waiting on? Go play Gears of War. Start with the first one and work your way up to Gears of War 5, and I promise you, you will not be disappointed. Also, Gears of War has a very strong online community. I'm not big on playing online of any game, but if you were to pick one to play online, you can guarantee that you're going to have a great time with the Gears game. So play Gears. All right, the next game here is another heavy hitter, which is Rise of Tomb Raider. Now, if you guys did not know, Rise of Tomb Raider was a timed exclusive for the Xbox platform. I'm assuming they did this in order to try to compete with the upcoming Uncharted 4 that was coming on the PlayStation 4. And you know what, I enjoyed the reboot of Tomb Raider, so I was really looking forward to this sequel. And since I already owned an Xbox when this was announced, this was definitely something I was looking forward to playing. And yeah, if you enjoy the reboot Tomb Raider, or if you played Tomb Raider the Definitive Edition, this is pretty much more of that on a grander scale. You know, the game starts off with you climbing like this giant snow mountain, and it's just a bunch of crazy things that happen throughout the game. You learn more about Trinity, you do more puzzles, you learn about ancient artifacts, you know, the typical thing you would do in a Tomb Raider style game. So if you enjoy scaling mountains and solving puzzles and having some cool action mechanics thrown in there, this game is for you. So definitely check this out. Now this game is on both PlayStation 4, Xbox, and the PC, so you can kind of play this anywhere now. But at the time, this was a driving Xbox exclusive and a game that I enjoyed playing quite a bit. So yeah, Rise of Tomb Raider, great game. All right, the next game I want to highlight is actually a compilation title, which is Halo Master Chief Collection, which is something I was super excited about. You know, when they announced this initially, I was excited because I have very fond memories of me playing with a bunch of friends on Halo 1 and also being introduced to online connectivity with the original Xbox, playing games like Halo 2. And then that also led me to the 360 and playing a lot of Halo 3. Like, Halo is probably the FPS that I spent the most time with online. I loved the first 3 Halos. So when they announced that this was coming out and all the online is going to be intact with improved visuals, I was immediately sold. Unfortunately, this game had a very rocky start with server issues, so on and so forth. It looks like most of that is patched out now. So if you ever was curious about the previous Halo titles, the Master Chief Collection offers Halo 1 through 4. I believe you can also download the side games as well with this collection, like OST and all that. But yeah, this game is, this is fantastic. If you ever want to relive what it was like playing Halo 2 and 3 online, this is the way you want to do it, man. Halo Master Chief Collection is definitely a big standout for me on the Xbox. All right, the next game I want to talk about is Halo 5. Halo 5 had a lot of hype behind it. You know, after Halo 3, I kind of fell off the Halo bandwagon. I didn't really, I bought 4, but I just never got around to playing it on the 360. And of course, with the Master Chief Collection, I played a lot of Halo 1, 2, and 3. But when Halo 5 came out, I actually got a chance to play this once Xbox introduced their Game Pass, which is something we're going to get into a little bit later. But when I played Halo 5, I went straight to the online. I didn't even care to really play the campaign. To be honest with y'all, I really don't care about the Halo story and the lore, and I know a lot of people out there do. So before you write hate comments down below, just understand that the way I was introduced to Halo was strictly on a multiplayer side. So when it comes to like the online campaigns, I really did not take the time to really, get into that. But Halo 5, when I played it, I went straight to the online, and I will say I had a lot of fun. I had a lot of buddies who were really into Halo 5, and we would, get up on a party chat or hop up on Discord, and we would talk to each other while playing Halo. So it is a fun time. It is definitely a fun time. I would say if you have Xbox Game Pass, or if you just want to buy the game, Halo 5 will offer you for sure a very fun online time. So definitely give it a look. All right, now these next games are not necessarily Xbox exclusives, but I will say I decided to finally get into the Far Cry series with Far Cry 4 and 5. And the reason I am talking about them on the Xbox, well, when it comes to any first-person shooter, I feel like the Xbox controller is the best controller to play those type of games on. I just feel like the controller just fits so perfectly with that style of game. So on the Xbox One, I decided to jump into the Far Cry series because I heard so many people rave about it. So I bought Far Cry 4, and I damn near 100% of that game. I love Far Cry 4 so much. Just playing it on the Xbox, the controls were perfect. I love how the triggers feel on the controller. I guess me talking about Far Cry on the Xbox Retrospective is more so a testament how good their controller is. Same thing with Far Cry 5. I played it quite a bit. I didn't like Far Cry 5 nearly as much as I like Far Cry 4, but it was still a fun time. So Far Cry was definitely one of the games I put a lot of hours into on my Xbox One. All right, and the last games on this list are some of my favorite titles, so they're definitely not the lowest ranking for sure. This is going to be Forza Horizon 2 and 3. So I will say this, when it comes to racing games, I'm not really a big fan of the simulation games. So a lot of people, when they hear the name Forza, some people's minds automatically go to Forza Motorsports, which is kind of like Xbox's version of Gran Turismo. Is simulated. It's supposed to represent the realism of being in one of those cars. Well, Forza Horizon is more of an arcadey style racing game. Is more of a relaxing time, which I enjoy. So I remember seeing a lot of previews for this game. I remember watching the E3 presentations for Forza Horizon 2, and just something about it just really drew me in. So I played Forza Horizon 2, and I just loved it. It's just something about driving around in this open world, playing your own music. Because a lot of times I would just play these games to kind of unwind from a long day. So I would just like throw on a podcast or throw on an album and just drive around and do different tasks in Forza Horizon. The same thing for 3. These games are absolutely beautiful, and Forza Horizon is an amazing series. And I would probably say one of the best racing titles ever. And it's very accessible. You know, they have things like the rewind feature. The cars are awesome. There's a lot of customization there, a lot of beautiful scenery. These are definitely showpieces for the Xbox as well. So if you want a game that's really going to show off the graphical horsepower of the console, Forza is one of the best games to do that on. So Forza Horizon is definitely a game that if they ever come out with a new one on the new Series X, hopefully it takes place in Tokyo. Let's cross our fingers on that. But I love Forza Horizon, and it's definitely a game I always look forward to playing. Let's move on. All right, so I guess in this segment, now that we're done talking about the games that I enjoy, I want to take some time to really kind of talk about, you know, Microsoft in the Xbox business. So number one, we got to give huge props to Phil Spencer for turning the Xbox around in the eyes of the consumer. Phil Spencer has done an amazing job. If you don't know, Phil Spencer became the head of the Xbox division, and that man is fantastic when it comes to the way that he presents, his ideology when it comes to video games, and he's a gamer himself. So it's almost like he understands what gamers appreciate and what we want, and Phil Spencer is definitely in touch with the community. I see him tweet all the time on Twitter. He knows. So huge shout out to Phil Spencer. Amazing guy, and I'm super excited to have him, you know, leading Xbox into this next generation. Also, let's talk about Xbox's backwards compatibility, which I think was an amazing thing because, you know, me being, you know, a huge fan of retro games and playing some of these older titles, you know, the Xbox, when they announced backwards compatibility, it made me super excited because I did have a huge back catalog of Xbox 360 games that I would love to play on my modern television and things like that. And I no longer had a 360, but I had a huge digital library that I could not bring over for the longest time. So when they brought over backwards compatibility, I was super excited because on my Xbox 360 digital library, I had one of my favorite games of all time, which was Nights into Dreams. So yeah, you know, when they introduced backwards compatibility, you know, you damn right I was like super hyped about that. And that was one of the best moves, considering that Sony and Nintendo don't really care about backwards compatibility. The fact that Xbox and Microsoft actually care about preserving these games, we got to give them props for that. You know, we got to give them props for that. The next thing is the Xbox Game Pass, which I think is a very interesting thing. So the Xbox Game Pass, essentially what it is, just like any other streaming service, whether it's like Netflix or let's just say Apple Music, Spotify, HBO, whatever, you pay a monthly fee and you essentially are leasing a library of games and you can download them directly to your console. So I like this because, you know, how many times that, you know, a new game comes out and it's something that you really want to play, but you're not sure if it's worth this $60. Well, guess what? Microsoft is going to allow you to play that game as long as you pay a $10 a month fee. And the thing about Game Pass, they're always doing promotions on it. I remember, you know, when Game Pass came out, they were really aggressive about it. Like I've seen so many promotions where Microsoft is just saying, hey, give us $1, we'll let you have it for 3 months. Stuff like that. So Microsoft is like really aggressive with the Game Pass, and I love what they're doing with that. You know, Game Pass is how I sampled a lot of games on this channel. You know, one of the most recent reviews that I did, The Tourist, it was a game that I saw, an indie title that I really wanted to play, and I saw it was like $20 on the eShop. But I said, you know, something told me, let me check Game Pass because it did come to Xbox and it was right there. So Game Pass is a fantastic way to not only play the Microsoft first party titles, what they usually put up there day one, but it's also great just to kind of check that service and see, okay, what games are on here that I was kind of thinking about playing, but not really. So I think Xbox Game Pass from a service perspective is amazing, and that's one thing I could say about Microsoft. If we take anything, if we look at Microsoft and we can say anything about what they contribute to gaming, they made it to where services became important. You know, they pretty much pioneered online gaming on the consoles. You know, they have things like Game Pass, Xbox Live. You know, when it comes to services and that integration with services, I truly believe Microsoft is the best to do it. So, but yo, that is pretty much it for the Microsoft and Xbox One retrospective. Drop some comments down below. I want to know what are some of your guys' favorite titles for the Xbox. What are your overall thoughts on the Xbox, and where do you see Xbox going in the future? Let me know down below. I can't wait to talk to you guys. With that being said, thank you all for watching, and I'll see you next time.